Hello and welcome to Martyrs Miracles, a podcast about the real lives of the saints and holy figures. Death, life, rather inconvenient details, and all. Today I'm going to share with you the story of Saint Dymphna, patron saint of the mentally ill, those suffering from anxiety and depression, and victims of rape and incest. So yeah, a real fun story today, and by fun I mean heavy, gruesome, honest, and well, what do you expect from a story about this patron saint? This one comes with a sensitivity warning, though. Subjects of mental illness, rape, incest, murder, and fleeing from danger. Much of Dymphna's story, as with most Celtic tales, is passed down via oral tradition. There are several versions of her story and interpretations of what happened. When I study the saints before I paint their icons, I consider all of what's been shared and use my intuition and mysticism to pass along their stories to you. I don't claim to be an expert, nor do I claim that every piece of context is completely true. I just use the tools and research I've been given, what is readily available, and provide you with the most accurate version, sometimes with descriptive words and imagery added, to better tell the story and give you a sense of place and vision. Also, I apologize in advance for any mispronunciations, especially with Gaelic words. I'm a Yankee girl living in the South. So let's dive into this story, shall we? Dymphna was born in 7th century Ireland to a pagan king and a devout Christian queen. When Dymphna was just 14 years old, she took a vow of chastity, completely devoting herself to God. Not long after this, her mother fell ill and died. King Damon loved his beautiful wife and could not find any comfort in his grief after her tragic and premature death. The story goes that King Damon sent his men on a search to find another woman who looked identical to his late queen so he could remarry and find happiness once more. The search was sorely unsuccessful. One member of the group suggested that young Dymphna looked exactly like her mother, with flowing, long red hair, pale freckled skin, full red lips, and a petite figure. And if the king was searching for a queen, then he could surely find one in his own daughter. Damon's already fragile mind, overwhelmed by grief, began to twist and turn dark, a deep shade of inky violet blackness, as he sought after his own daughter, his own flesh and blood, who he now only recognized as his late wife when he looked into her vivid sea-green eyes. Dymphna hid in the barn loft, buried in a pile of hay, as the unhinged king, who she knew as her father, came looking for her one evening. One can only imagine his exact intentions, since she is the patron saint of incest victims, but I'll spare you the details here. When she knew he was gone, she fled through the woods by lantern light to her father confessor, an elderly priest named Gerbrand. When the priest heard of the king's state of mind, he fled with Dymphna, 2 trusted servants, and the king's fool by boat to Giel, in what is now modern Belgium. The group settled in Giel, where Dymphna had her heart set on helping the poor and the sick. She used her wealth to build a much-needed hospital. Unfortunately, by using that wealth, it didn't take long for the king's spies to find her, find where she was hiding, and let Damon in on what young Dymphna was up to and who she was conspiring with. Damon immediately sailed to Giel and captured the benevolent group. He ordered Father Gerbrand slaughtered, his head cut off while he tried to convince Dymphna once more to return to Ireland as his new queen. When she vehemently refused him, he became unhinged once more, drew his sword, and struck her neck and shoulders, severing her head from her modest frame, long red hair flowing with a breath of wind as thick scarlet-colored lament poured from the gaping wound, her martyred soul seeping into the earth around them. Dymphna and Gerbrand's lifeless bodies were buried in a nearby cave by the very residents they helped in the community of Giel. Dymphna's healing miracles and profound compassion were well known by the mentally ill and those inflicted with anxiety and depression. Dymphna became known as the Lily of Era. A church was built in Geel in 1349 to honor the Irish martyr, but had to be expanded in 1480 because so many pilgrims in need of miracles from their mental illness were flooding the gates. The sanctuary continued to overflow, and the local townspeople began inviting the strangers into their homes, which began a tradition of caring for the fragile and mentally ill that continues to this very day. Sometime in the 15th century, the original St. Dymphna Church in Geel burned down, but a new one was erected, where it still stands today. Dymphna's remains are contained in a golden reliquary within the church, and a relic can also be found at the Shrine of St. Dymphna in St. Mary's Catholic Church in Massillon, Ohio. Father Gerbrand, who helped our dear Dymphna escape her incestual father, is also sainted, and his remains are in Xanten, Germany. St. Dymphna's feast day is May 15th. Father Gerbrand, her confessor, is also celebrated the same day. Whew, that was a tough one. That was a hard one to get through, I know. And when I first posted on social media about Dymphna, when I was studying her, I had no idea the impact she had on people. I really had no idea the impact she had on me. I'm so glad these saints I learn and share about speak to so many of you. You really have no idea the validation and joy it brings me when you tell me that they speak to you. It's a stark reminder that this is important work and it must be shared, and very much the reason I started this podcast in the first place. I really hope Dymphna brings some comfort with whatever you're struggling with right now. As someone who lives and battles with depression and anxiety, she speaks to me very personally. I hope she speaks to you too. If you look up the National Shrine of St. Dymphna in Ohio, they have a prayer request page you can submit to. I sent a prayer request today, and I hope to visit there at some point. And her original church in Geel is definitely on my bucket list too. I'm going to share a little prayer with you to close out our time with Dymphna today on this episode of Martyrs and Miracles. Dear Dymphna, patron of the mentally ill and those afflicted with anxiety and depression, hear us. Carry our prayers with you to heaven, where all the martyrs reside. Our prayers of calm in the storm, straightening of the bow, rest in the chaos. Your sanctuary in Geel is known as a place of refuge to those ill of mind and heart. Help us find that sanctuary here where we are, wherever we are. Guide us to those like you who seek to help the afflicted, who seek to shine light in an otherwise dark world. Lily of Era, you are strong and courageous against the ill-willed and ill-intentioned. Help us carry that same strength and courage as we battle our own minds, our own hearts, and those people and forces who might seek to do harm, much like your own father. We rest in knowing your story, an important one that must be shared, and aim to share it with others who might benefit. Your story is not lost. You are not lost, just as we ourselves are not truly lost. The gray clouds and fingered fog just get in the way sometimes. Shine your lantern bright for us, dear Dymphna, so we can see your deep sea-green eyes and golden tears for ourselves. We know you cry for us too. Friends, if you're struggling with mental health or a crisis or thoughts of suicide, please call the Suicide Prevention Hotline by dialing 988. Or check out the National Institute of Mental Health at nimh.nih.gov for advice and ways to reach a mental health professional. While prayer with words is certainly helpful, we are always called to active prayer. Take action for yourself and for others, dear ones. Have a blessed day, my friends, and watch for the beautiful miracles around you. wanted to give a shout out and a thank you to Max DoVale for our original music, and to all of my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to contribute to this podcast and everything else that we do in this ministry, please go to patreon.com/Kristen Wheeler Artist. The link will be in the description, and we can't do this without you.